Hi, I'm Megan. This is Penelope, and welcome to my very small corner of the internet. I have come today to show you what I've been working on and what I hope to work on in the year of 2026. It is about halfway through January, so I figure it's a pretty good time. For those of you that found me from what I made in 2025, welcome back. If you're new, welcome in. And we'll just get started because I just finished a project this afternoon. So we'll start with that since it is no longer a WIP. I even wove the ends in. This is just a bit of my Zig and Zag blanket by Dayna Perry. I have it folded up because it is pretty heavy and I'm not going to be able to show you the whole thing in frame. It's about 37 inches wide and about 45 inches long. So I'm hoping it'll be a nice little lapgan for my previous supervisor at work. I'd been meaning to make him something, and then sort of out of the blue at the end of summer last year, he announced that he was leaving. I did not get this done before he left, and then I sort of lost some momentum on it. But here we are. It's finished, and I can mail it off. So some additional details for the pattern. Like I mentioned, the pattern is by Dayna Perry. It's part of the crochet blanket bundle that I had purchased and made a couple of projects from last year. I started it on October 20th of 2025, and I did not get to calculate the number of days that it took to finish this blanket. I made it out of Studio Classic by Nicole in Deep Wine using a 6mm hook. So this is 3 big giant skeins of the Studio Classic. It was something somebody had donated to the library. There are actually 4 skeins. I thought I was going to use all 4, but definitely lost steam, and it would have been a very strangely long blanket had I used the 4th skein of yarn. So I'm really happy with where it is. I'm going to give it a wash and get it in the mail. Oh, and I am so happy that that's my first completed project of 2026. It'll feel really good to get that out and to its intended recipient. So that's really exciting. Now for my longest standing WIP. This is my reading shawl. The pattern is by KF Jones, and it is designed to use, really, I think it's designed as an Advent project. I'm using a number of a set of minis as well as full skeins of sock yarn. So it's a DK weight pattern. I am using a single strand of DK for the neutral stripes in between the colors. So I'm using Baroko's Ultra Wool DK in the color Snow. So it's just a neutral, like very light cream. The stripes are a whole collection of as I mentioned, minis and fingering weight skeins that I picked up in the 2024 New Jersey Wool Walk from the stores that I went to. I have them listed on my Ravelry project page, but I don't recall them off the top of my head, and I do not have the list in front of me. But I know this is its own colorway, held double, as well as this dark green all the way at the bottom. I know this one is Secret Garden, but I do not recall the colorway. And the purple is called Purple People Eater, and I think that's from the Sheepy Shire. Now that I'm getting towards the end, you'll notice that the stripes get much narrower as you go down. And I think I'm almost finished. I think I have 3 colored stripes and then a picot bind off, which I believe will probably take me quite a while because I'm already at over 500 stitches in the row, and a picot has a lot of stitches to work across. But it is so squishy and so delightful, and I already have color catchers for when I have to go wash this. I'm hoping that this will be, my throw around chilly in the evening, sitting on the couch or reading a book, which I can sometimes do, though it's hard with a toddler and my attention span as it is. So this will be lounging around the house with a chill. It's a big triangular shawl. And I started this on January 26th of 2025. It looks like it will be on the needles for over a year, but I'm making progress and I'm almost finished, so happy with that. As I mentioned, it's a DK weight pattern, knitting this on 4.5 millimeter needles. This project brings me a lot of joy, and it's garter stitch across, so not very complicated. And it will be finished. It's well on its way. The next few projects, unfortunately, I do not have a start date recorded in Ravelry. So I picked them up at some point and started them. Obviously, it's not a big priority on when I finish them or how long it has taken me. So we'll just go with this Brava stripe blanket modified. I found, oh my goodness, I dropped stitches. Okay, after that crisis has been averted, I had dropped stitches off because obviously you can see the stitches are quite bunched on this needle. This is a heavily modified Brava stripe blanket. I'm using scraps and was planning to make a baby blanket for my son. I have made something, but it was a very tiny like car seat blanket, and I wanted to make something a little bit larger, and I'm not quite sure this is large enough. So I've stalled a little bit, but it is a fairly mindless project, so we'll see how long it goes for. I'm using Loops and Threads Impeccable for the colors. I've got 2 greens and 2 blues and a mystery white that I've had in my stash for a little while. This is on 5 millimeter needles and a cable that's probably a little too short, but I will keep going and see how large it becomes. He has blankets, so I'm not too worried about it. This was just something I threw together. The Brava stripe blanket uses a half linen stitch. So that's basically what I've pulled from the pattern. I don't even remember how many stitches I cast on. And obviously I didn't record when I started it. So a lot of this is up in the air. But I think it'll continue to grow. I haven't decided whether or not to pull it out, to be honest, and cast on some more stitches to make it kind of a more sizable blanket. And really, just because I already trimmed the end off of this first dark green and moved on to the lighter green, which is really a silly reason to continue on a project, but I haven't really given it too much thought until just this moment. So let me know what you think. It's hard to tell how big this blanket is when it's all bunched up on the needles, but now I have PTSD from picking it up and realizing that I had dropped stitches and needed to recomplete the row. Comments are appreciated on what to do with my modified Brava stripe blanket. Thank you very much. And I should give credit to the designer. The Brava stripe blanket was from a blog by Yay for Yarns Patterns. So I almost forgot that piece. The next is another modified pattern. I took part in a yarn club subscription because you get involved in a new hobby, and why not sign up for a year of, gaining new things to fuel that hobby. So I was fed an ad at the end of 2024 for Terrapin Fiberworks Bookworm yarn subscriptions. They're a fully plant-based yarn dyer based in Virginia, I think. And I was, I would say I was suckered, but I did enjoy the yarn every time it came. I decided to order their Harbor DK base, which is a cotton and linen blend. And I was getting all of these DK weight skeins, 1 per month, in a beautiful fade over the course of the year. And all with literary themes, and I was trying to figure out what to do with it. I looked at a couple of garment things and wasn't really sure about the structure of the fabric because the patterns I was looking at were made in wool, and I had this cotton linen blend. T-shirts weren't really pulling me in quite yet, and what was I going to get to hold with it? So what I decided to do was make a quite expensive picnic blanket. Since it is made with plant-based fibers, I figure it might be a a little easier to kind of throw around and be a little rough with. I am using 2 different patterns, both from Sandra Paul. I'm using the Battenberg blanket, which you've probably seen everywhere. They're the little teeny tiny squares that you join all together. I have taken a page from Natalie at Nitty Natty's book, and I have expanded the Battenberg square to be 8 rounds, which will match Sandra Paul's Nature's Walk squares, which was another year-long blanket that I think you would buy the pattern. She offers 6 patterns for free, and you could get up to 12 patterns for a paid price. I just used the 6 free patterns for different squares based on nature. So let me show you some of those. This is my pile of completed squares. Not all of them have their ends woven in. It is a join as you go construction, so I haven't woven in any of the outer edges, and I'm not quite sure I will, because I think if we crochet over them, I think that's going to be okay. But let's see about the colorways. First up is Futurist for January. It's a really lovely mix of kind of, on this base, it turned into kind of a moody mix of blues and greens and purple. There's a little bit of orange in there, and it will fade. The whole subscription will fade throughout the year. So I'm working now on kind of placing them where I want to in the blanket, because I'm almost finished with all of the squares. I am making some neutral squares to help join them, and I think I'm going to go by quarter. So this is like a really cool palette. Springtime turns into sort of a warmer palette, as well as fall, and winter goes back to kind of the really, really cool colors. So Futurist was January. February is Dragonfire, which is actually this one. We get these really beautiful reds that come popping through. It is much brighter than Futurist. And then to bring it back, we had Immortal, which is a really lovely tonal purple. That's the back. So this one's the Battenberg square with double crochets, and as was this one. And then this was one of the Nature's Walk patterns, which has some hearts made in in a granny square pattern. So they're all going to be the same size. I am going to block them before I start joining the squares. I just haven't gotten to it yet, y'all. So those are out of order because I was sort of playing with this first quarter and seeing how I liked the layout. So they're all together. Next up is April is Metamorphosis, which, just because this base kind of makes things a little moodier in a lot of instances. We have pink and green, really gives the idea of springtime and things kind of coming back to life and growing. May is Mythos. I did have to redo this square. You'll see it does look pretty small compared to the other two, but I'm hoping I can get these sort of eyelets around the corner to stretch out and give me that same size. I am a little bit nervous, so think positive thoughts for me. This is a really beautiful gold color that I think goes from Metamorphosis really beautifully into June's color, which is Arcane. So this has coming back to like the greens, and there's some red and orange. It does have that hint of gold from Mythos preceding it. So this was a really cool one. Well, I lied earlier because I said that summer into fall was still like a warmer color, but it's not. We got blues. I love blues. They're my favorite tones. So this is July. This is Seafarer, obviously bluey green. For the sea, this is probably up there for one of my favorite colorways in this grouping. August was Cataclysm, which I think is really, really beautiful. You have some browns, some blues, and a whole bunch of different blue tones. We've got really light blue. And I think it does a really nice job of bringing that fade into the very, very cool colors. I think I have this right. So September was Literary, which is another tonal. It's this beautiful navy. All of the The colorways on this base, I think, are a little bit muted compared to some of the other bases, but I think it's going to wear really lovely, especially if this picnic blanket does wind up getting like a bunch of use in our family, which obviously I'm hoping it will. So we'll see. October was Eldritch, which I find a very interesting colorway. This has the blues and greens, but obviously they're a little bit darker. So we're going from navy into some even more cooler tones and some darker tones for the fall. November is purple. This is Sorceress, and I love this. It is variegated, though it does come off quite pretty tonal as it's worked into the granny square, but just a bunch of different purples. We do go kind of all the way to almost black in some of this, and we go from dark purple to light purple for December with Meet Cute. So I love this as the ending, and you get this nice little pop. As I mentioned, I'm planning to group them kind of in seasons for the blanket. I made 3 squares out of every month, so I have 36 squares there. I wanted to make it slightly larger than that, so I'm going to do 7 by 7, which means I need an additional 13 squares. I put in an order for Knit Picks Cotton Bear skeins. So it's just a really neutral, undyed yarn of the same, a very similar makeup. I think it's a different cotton, and it does feel slightly different as it's worked. I don't know if that's the dye or the composition of the yarn, but it's another cotton linen blend. So these are going to go in sort of a cross in the middle of the blanket, as well as the bear yarn will be used to join all of the squares in a continuous join as you go method, as well as creating the border around the squares. So looking forward to that process. I am hoping to keep moving on it and get this finished up in the first quarter of the year, which feels possible, but I find that this, while the squares are a nice, like, bring it with you wherever you go kind of project, the joining is going to be quite a feat when I get to that point. So please wish me well. I appreciate it. And I went from a whole ton of blankets plus a shawl to my last 2 WIPs are both sweater projects for myself. So the older and more established project is Linger Here by Stephanie Lotven of Terrapin Knits. I did put it in the description, and it is listed on her Ravelry page. I think I got that right this time, and I got it wrong in my last video, so I apologize for that. It is a nice, comfy, cozy, drop shoulder cabled project. I really like how the cables kind of intersect across each other in the cable pattern. So that is what drew me to this. I am knitting this on a 5mm needle, using Lion Brand Pound of Love in the color Cadet, because I like the light blue, but I found this was a little bit more saturated than like a really, really powder blue. So this is going to be a really cozy, like, throw it on sweatshirt kind of sweater when it's finished. It is 100% acrylic. I'm not sure how functional it's going to be, but there is quite a bit of movement in this, and hoping that I can just throw it on at home. I guess I'm wearing an acrylic sweater that's store-bought now, so we'll see. But I've really liked working on this project. I had kind of hibernated it after I split for sleeves, and was trying to get some Christmas gifts done, and I thought it was a nice place to do that. And I have since picked it up as of Wednesday, and knit a couple inches on it. The cables are a pretty long repeat. I think it's like 9 rounds in between, and it's a fairly easily memorizable pattern once you're familiar with it, and especially once you're in the round. And it's a long cable chart, so I think I only have to do the full chart, like, I think it's 2.5 times, and I've completed 1 already, so I still have a ways to go, and obviously 2 sleeves, but this feels like it's in a good place. Knitting a size 4 in this, and hoping it just gives me a nice, like, throw on kind of feel. Okay, my final WIP, I'm still sort of in the intimidation phase. I pick it up and do a couple of rows at a time, a couple meaning too. This is the Champagne Pullover by Sari Nordlund. I saw the pattern pictures for this sweater and it literally took my breath away. The lace and cable design that goes all the way across the front of the body is just absolutely stunning. This is as far as I've gotten. I think in a lot of Sari's patterns, you start picking up at the back. So this is the back of the sweater. Everybody works the same 33 rows. So I am working on that. The yarn I am using is Knit Picks Stroll Brights in the color Pucker, held with Knit Picks Aloft in Cosmopolitan. So getting this really beautiful bright pink. I think it's going to be a statement for sure. And I love the cable definition. It's really, really cool that I can like already see this coming alive. And I feel really, really accomplished, even though, like I said, I am still pretty deep in the intimidation phase. This is my first time working with mohair. Aside from my shawl where I'm holding 2 DK weights together, this is the first time that I'm holding multiple strands. So it is definitely a learning experience, but I am enjoying it. As a reminder, I'm a left-handed knitter, so I have to, I read charts in the opposite direction because I knit in the opposite direction. So when you start on the right side of the page, probably my gestures are backwards to you, and you come across, I actually read like we would a piece of textual writing. So I read from left to right for row 1. Anytime the instructions say knit 2 together, I SSK and vice versa. And I also have to flip the cables. So I don't have to, but if I don't, then if I follow the instructions, my cables will be reversed per the pattern design. Sometimes I don't mind on that. I think the Linger here, I'm using, I'm just following the directions. So my cables will be reverse the pattern pictures, but I'm okay with that. This one, I am adjusting so that the cables look the same way that they do in the pattern pictures. Don't ask me why I made that choice, but it is where we are. And that is all I am working on right now. I did want to throw out some project plans for the year, some things that I have yarn for and are kind of in the pipeline. I have some really big projects that are going, so I don't have a strict timeline, but some of these things I'd like to at least start in the year, and maybe have a better talk with myself of realistic timelines, especially based on how long it's taking me to knit the 33 rows that consist the first pattern, the first chart for the Champagne Pullover. But we'll see what happens in the future. I do have a queue on Ravelry, so you can check that out if you're interested. The link for my profile will be down in the description box. But here are my thoughts and things that I have yarn for. I made a pair of socks last year. They were fairly successful, but I'd like to try a different pattern. Something that's pretty popular for a lot of people is Hermione's Everyday Socks by Erica Lueder. I have a couple skeins of sock yarn, a couple self-striping. I do have a sock skein with a mini. So just waiting to figure out which one would work best for that particular pattern. I think it has like a just a knit purl texture all the way around. This would be a new heel for me with a garter stitch edged slip stitch heel. And they do look like a really comfortable pair of socks when they're finished. So hoping to get to that. I also have the Salty Air Tee by Samantha Guerin on my list. The yarn I would use for it is the La Bien Amie Merino Super Sock in Alicent. I picked up 3 skeins of this last year on local yarn store day. I was visiting my parents' house, so I found a yarn store that was fairly close by. And I think it would be a really, really cool pattern, especially if I get the hang of lace doing the Champagne Pullover. I don't think this one's going to be a problem to make a really beautiful tee. I'd love to have that for the springtime, but if I don't start it now, I'm not sure what the prospect of that is. So maybe summer, fall. I work at a library, so it is fairly climate controlled. So it is possible that I can wear a knit t-shirt a pretty good ways into the fall time, if that's when it's finished. So there's the plan. I do have another Sari Nordlund pattern that I'd love to get going this year. If you aren't familiar with it, I'm talking about the book club cardigan. Again, I'm working on my cable skills right now. So once I kind of get through these two, if I finish the champagne, I think I'm going to be a pro and not worry at all about the book club cardigan at a DK weight. I picked up the Knit Picks Wool of the Andes worsted. Sorry, it's a worsted pattern in Ciel, which is a blue, not dissimilar to the line brand Pound of Love and Cadet. But it'll be a much different experience knitting and wearing the Linger here versus the book club cardigan, I'm sure. No real date on that, but I'm sure that it will come up in the queue, and I'll get it started sometime this year. Oh, this one's cool. I found in a library book, I think, the Polaris sofa throw. This is one of these quilt block crochet blankets that I'm seeing like all over the knitting podcasts. There is no reference page on Ravelry, but I can see if I can get a picture up here. It's going to be a lot of work, but I did find yarn that was donated to the library in, I think, 4 or 5 different hues that I think would be really, really beautiful in this quilt-inspired crochet blanket. So once I finish some of the other blankets that I have here, that'll be my next really probably long-range project as far as a new blanket. So I really have no timeline on that one at all, but I am really excited and I have the materials for it. I have a couple of hoodies, one toddler sized and one sized for me. I have the Harvest hoodie by Ashlea Schumaker on my wish list. And I have a couple of skeins of Big Twist Value Pound Plus in a really beautiful teal color that I just think would be really, really fun to crochet up and see what the final product is. Again, no strict timeline on that whatsoever. Log Cabin Mitts by Karen Templer would be fun. You know, it's a log cabin style, so you kind of pick up and knit in rectangles until you seam them on the sides, and then I think create the thumb hole. So I have some scraps from a winter hat that I made and a cowl, and I'd like to put all of those together to make like the log cabin pieces. I think that would be a fairly quick project, maybe aside from weaving in the ends of picking up all of the new yarns, but it's not something I'm thinking about at this very moment. So we'll see. I just have those scraps kind of kicking around in a bag right now until I have, I guess, a spare needle. And then one of my local yarn stores unfortunately closed a couple weeks ago. So I did go in on their sale days and take advantage of their sale prices. I picked up sweater quantities for 2 different projects, although I didn't write down what I purchased. So let's see if I can remember. I thought about doing the CatKnit Pullover by Andrea Rangel. This is a really beautiful circular yoke colorwork pattern that looks really beautiful like from afar, and they're like, wow, that's a beautiful colorwork sweater, and then you get closer and it's cats. I have a cat. She's a tabby, and this is clearly a tabby cat sitting across the yoke of the sweater. So I got this really beautiful like royal blue, I think it was in Cascade Heritage, and a Malabrigo Makita variegated skein to create the colorwork. So it's not as dark as my sweet girl Penelope, who's a really dark brown tabby, but I think it's going to be a really fun project when I get to it. That I have the materials. I'm not in a rush to make it. So we'll see if it gets cast on this year. I think it would be so cool. And it would be my first circular yoke and my first colorwork garment rather than accessory. So it would be a pretty big project to take on. And finally, I picked up material for the stripe hype sweater by Veronika Lindberg. I don't wear a lot of stripes, but I really like the way this looks on a lot of people, and thought it would be fun to play with stripes in a couple of different ways. So I got Barocco Vintage DK in a couple of different colorways. I got an oatmeal to hold throughout, and then a couple of different jewel tones, which I'll try to get pictures of to put alongside. There's a teal and a navy, a green, a pink, and a purple, I think. So I just think it would be a really fun pattern. Again, no clear plans aside from having the materials for it. And let me know if you have priorities of anything that you'd like to see the process of, I guess. And I'd love to keep the conversation going. So drop a comment and let me know what you're working on, what you'd like to see from me. Hit the subscribe button so you can come back and see the next video that I post. And thank you so much for spending your time with me today, whenever you're watching it. And I'll see you next time. Bye.